Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. This is gonna be fun. So, something that I've wanted to do for some time is sort of step up my game when it comes to switching sources. Now, I've told you before, and if you're new here, you haven't had to hear this yet, but here you go. Instead of using a typical setup with a receiver and passive speakers, I opt for active speakers that are amplified, self-amplified, and passive switches to switch between my sources. So that means that I have to use a clunky mechanical switch, and that's what I've done for some time. I've had this Pelican switch. In fact, this is it. This is my old Pelican switch. I've been using this for years and years and years. You can label the front if you want, and it's just this very old school mechanical switch. And then the various inputs. You can see it switches everything from like Cat5 to S-Video, component, composite, and then it works as a 4-to-1 audio switch, and that's what I've been using it for as well. In fact, I inherited this from my brother. He used it as a video game switch, made by Pelican, completely mechanical, requires no power, and it still works perfectly. It'll work good forever because there's just nothing really to break on it. So I've decided to take it to the next level. I saw this product out there. Now, we've reviewed recently a very cool phono preamp by Douk Audio. And when I was looking at the product catalog, I also saw this VU meter / switch. And what's interesting is you can use it as either a 4-to-1 switch, or you can use it as a 1-to-4 splitter. So it's kind of an interesting product. So I thought we would give that a look. You're not gonna wanna miss this. I want you to keep in mind that this is a less than $200 purchase, but hopefully one that will give a significant improvement in our overall enjoyment of this hobby. Definitely not an essential item by any means. Well, it could be, depending on what you're using it for and how it's needed. I personally don't have to have this to make my system function. It is powered by USB. This is the USB power supply. It does have a remote. We'll look at this closer in a minute. By the way, sorry this is opened, but I wasn't sure if it had retail packaging or not. So I did tear into it and put it back for the effect. It's all for video, right? It's all for video. Anyway, so removing this, setting this aside. This is going to serve as a switch for me. This does three major functions. It's a switch, or it's a splitter. So it's 4 in, 1 out, or 1 in, 4 out. And it's a VU meter. It has a couple other features as well. But what I got it for was to use as a switch. I have one that I inherited a mechanical switch from my brother years and years ago, and I think it's time to upgrade. I'll show that to you in a minute, but this is what we're dealing with. This is the device. I think you will see why I wanted to make this upgrade. This thing is just gorgeous. This obviously features big, beautiful analog VU meters, and I think when we're dealing with analog audio like vinyl, tapes, all that good stuff, it's really fun to take it to the nth degree. And for me, part of that is the VU meter, to see these things dancing, backlit, all this good stuff. By the way, this is available in a couple different colors. There was like a blue version, there was a amber version, so I'll show you which one I got here in a little bit. Metal case, everything feels super rugged, and again, it's 4 in, 1 out, or 1 in, 4 out. So you can see the way it's labeled. Takes a minute to kind of perceive that. I remember when I was looking at the diagrams before I ordered this, I was like trying to figure out like, what the heck am I looking at here? Like left and right, in, out. But yeah, so either you put in 4 devices as sources and this switches between them and sends it out there, or you put 1 device in here and it sends it replicated to 4 different outputs. I will be using the former. For me, that's what makes sense. Designed by One Little Bear and Douk Audio, made in China. I love the gold-plated terminals. It just looks clean. On the bottom, we have a rubberized foot. Again, metal chassis. The faceplate on this is clean. Right here, we've got 4 buttons to select the input. And we've got a function that I believe switches between the automatic gain control setting or the decibel setting for the gain control. Knobs have good drag on them, and you can see the, I'm trying to kind of make the needle dance a little bit there. That is a true electromechanical VU meter. These are not simply for effect, dancing to the music, but a true VU meter. And that's about all I can show you without connecting it. So we're going to not just connect it, but I'm going to show you my, as it stands today, setup, and, what we're going to do, what it's going to look like after the fact. If you remember way back in Denver, I had a glass top desk, which was really tricky to hide cables and film on and stuff like that. So when I got this particular desk, I was trying to find one I could, hide all these cables a little better. As you can see, I'm struggling in that regard. I kind of wish there was a panel in the back to kind of hide that stuff. It does look more messy than I would like. And you may be saying, desk, what are you talking about? Yep, my main setup is at my desk where I spend most of my time working and recreating and creating content and all that good stuff. So this is my main setup, the way I've got it set up here. So two things we're looking at here. This is one of my tube preamps. I've got this connected to my SLDL1, which is right off camera to the right. In fact, you can see a little bit of it back there. And then underneath of it is this switch I was talking about. And this is a very basic switch. It's by Pelican. I'm gonna pull it out here so you can see it a little better. And it's literally just a mechanical push button switch to switch between inputs. There have been times when I've had it labeled, then I realized, well, I pretty much know what's connected. And it's got 3 inputs on the back, 1 input on the front, and I just use it to switch outputs. It's been pretty good. It's got dual outputs, so in previous setups where I've had 2 sets of speakers, it split it out, which was nice. So it's kind of like 4 in, 2 out, and it's worked really good for me. But as you can see, it eats up a lot of real estate, and it's an older setup. It's not ideal. So I thought that this product we're looking at today would be a good replacement for that. One thing I will say though is it's really hard to find mechanical switches with enough inputs, and I have more than 4, so this is not my only switch. I also have this guy. This is actually a nicer switch. This one is a 5 input, 1 output switch, and it's got a nice heavy metal faceplate. It's actually got wings or like a faceplate that would allow you to rack mount it in the right scenario. And this one I'm keeping because this is the switch for everything in my rack here. So I've got a record player on top, 8-track, 5-disc changer, internet radio, and the product I have not shown on this channel for a long time, my mini disc player. And so this basically pre-selects, based on which one I pick, an input that goes to one of the inputs on the other switch. So I still need, for the rack mounted equipment, to pre-select it here, and I don't mind keeping this one because I think this looks slick. It's high quality, it's durable, it's heavy metal construction. And then we'll replace the cheaper Pelican plastic one with this one with the VU meters, which will be right there on my desk and give me something, to look at instead of just a piece of plastic. Now you may be saying to yourself, why are you doing this? What, doesn't your receiver handle switching? I don't use a receiver. I'm odd in that instead of using a receiver and passive speakers, I use mechanical switches and active speakers. So my speakers have amplifiers built in. And the speaker of choice for me are these beautiful Fluence AI41s, which have a 5-inch speaker. I think they would be called AI51s if they had a 5-inch speaker, but that's just me. 2-way speaker. They're ported. They're, like I said, amplified. It's 90 watts total for the two, so 45 per channel. Sitting here at my desk, this is enough amplification in this. I have a subwoofer as well off camera that I use, and this is my setup. I mean, it's a very individual and personal thing. Everybody does it differently, but this is the way I've chosen to do it, at least for this particular part of my house. And since they're amplified, they don't need a receiver, and that would just add weight and heat, and if there's a fan noise, I don't want all that. So this is the way I've got it set up, but I need to be able to switch inputs, and this new device should help us do just that. So without further ado, I'm going to take apart this old one, or remove it, I should say, not take it apart. And I will put the new device in there and we'll look over its features and see if it's a good replacement. You'll have to forgive me for the suboptimal angle here with the lighting in the back. I'm actually using my little iPhone light off camera to give it a little bit of better frontal illumination there. So here it is. It is so pretty. I mean, it doesn't matter the way it's backlit right now. At night, it'll be even more spectacular. It takes the place of the Pelican, and it has a smaller footprint. So I've got more surface area down here in front, which I'm glad for. The Fozzy Audio preamp sits nicely on top. I probably should have had the Douk Audio preamp on top, but this one works very, very nicely. So I've gone for the orange illuminated VU meters versus the blue. It's kind of a vintage aesthetic. It's a pretty simple device. Again, it can be used as a 4-in, 1-out or a 1-in, 4-out splitter. I'm using it in the switch configuration. So essentially you've got a couple things you can do here. So you can switch between, the various inputs. Obviously there's 4 of them. And you can also adjust how the gain works, or basically the settings for the VU meters. Easiest way to do that is with the remote that comes with it. So I actually ended up getting the black remote, which I prefer a little bit better. But you've got the 4 basic things you can switch here. You can mute the device and on and off, but this is the key thing here. So you can select either line level or mic level for the pickup, and automatic gain control or decibel for the measurement. So essentially what that means is if I put this on mic mode, you'll see that lights up green, and everything it hears ambiently in the room, even my voice, gets fed through the VU meters. Testing 1, 2, 3. If I snap my fingers, whatever. And then if I switch it back to line mode, those needles will fall down flat because there's no signal going to them yet. And I will send a signal to it in a minute so you can hear that. So that's what that switch does. And then the automatic gain control /dB switch allows you to either manually set those levels with the knobs here, one for left and right channel. Actually, no, one's a delay and one is a gain. So let me back up a little bit. So you can manually set that level or automatic gain. So I've got it to automatic gain with no delay or a minimal delay, and the line level input. So that's the way I've got it set up, and it's as simple as that. You can switch your sources and you can enjoy the VU meters while you're listening to your source. So let me play some music silently because of copyright issues, but we will watch the VU meter dance together. As you can see, it's as simple as that. I'm gonna turn the volume down. But yeah, it's a complete game changer in terms of adding some visual appeal to your switch, because switches are boring. Switches don't really do anything. So to have the VU meter, sorry, the bird's cheeping, the VU meter and the switch combined into one device with some added functionality is a very, very cool thing. Houston, we have a problem. So it came to pass that while listening to this and admiring how pretty it was, I started to notice distortion. I started to notice sort of a crunchy, subtle yet definitely present compression, distortion, and a loss of dynamics on the audio, which totally stinks because I was so excited to have this in my setup, but it's not going to come at the expense of dynamic range and, error-free, distortion-free playback. So just to make sure I wasn't crazy, because that is a possibility, I put the old Pelican back, as you can see here, just to do the single input, and it made an instant improvement, which, again, true mechanical switch. This is a hybrid, I believe, electronic and, or electric and physical, mechanical at the same time. So yeah, a bummer. I'm going to have to say, I can't recommend that because of that reason right there. It can't come at the expense of sound quality. So even though it's beautiful, it's got issues. And even though this is ugly, my Pelican switch is going back in because it works, and it works well. The audio is much more, it's sung. I can't even describe it. It just sounded the way it should. Okay, so I think I've come to a, I don't know if I call it a happy medium or just a medium. I have bypassed the unit as a switch entirely. which negates the purpose that I set out to have to begin with. Put the Pelican back in and tried using one of the auxiliary outputs of my Pelican to power the VU meter switch, the Douk audio switch. Unfortunately, I was having the same problem, and I realized that having dual outputs on the mechanical switch was basically taking voltage, line voltage away, causing the same problem. So I think the fact that it's not a truly mechanical switch is where the problem lies, because there is some conductivity, possibly between the various inputs and how much they are represented in the final output. All that to say, when I went back to the old Pelican, it sounded good again. Now, I've been looking through the manual, and a couple of things. I noticed that what I was assuming was AGC, automatic gain control, is actually ACG, which I think means the same thing. Reading this basically describes what an automatic, gain control circuit or algorithm would do. Oh yeah, and the other thing was I switched it to microphone mode. So it's literally just listening to what's in the room. And because it's under the speaker, I'm able to adjust it. I also noticed here under warm tips number 2, when 4 in, 1 out, which is what I was trying, is being used, it's not recommended to do so with those sources in parallel, or there will be some distortion. If the level of those 4 players or inputs are different. Now, they were 4 line level inputs. All of them were off except for the active one. And I was still getting distortion, but that's the closest thing to an explanation that I can find. So at the end of the day, I would not recommend it because of those issues, and it's just sitting here as a fancy VU meter picking up ambient audio, totally for looks, not really a functional device the way I've got it configured. Just thank you for being there. You guys are awesome. Don't forget, 45 adapters are for sale. Other merch down on the merch shelf is for sale as well. But mostly I just want to say thank you for being there as always. We received a record player today for review purposes that I am so excited to share with you. And that video will be coming up next, unless something even better comes along in the meantime. So you're going to want to hang out for that one in the next few days. But that's going to do it for today, guys. So happy record hunting, and we'll see you next time.